morning glory. Say there, stop that yawning. A brand new day is dawning. Pull up the shade and let the sun come through. Good morning glory. Spend about an hour underneath a shower and keep on singing like the birdies do.
My book critic has promised me via email this morning that he's feeling extra feisty. And I've had my fiber today, so I think we're going to have a good time here on Books of the Week. And we are so happy to be back. I am Jeff Messerman in the confines of a library in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. And I do mean confines. And in his usual spot, surrounded by those things called books, is Steve Donahue.
Hello, everyone.
A book critic in Boston. And you can tell he's a book critic because he has many books around him.
Yes.
That's what they do. That's how they live.
Yeah, I've mentioned you before that sometimes I'm on video conference calls and people say, boy, where did you buy that background? It's so convincing.
What's frightening for me is when I go on video calls, I say, wow, where did you get that foreground? It's so convincing.
I have to tell these people, now, not only are these books real, but I've read them all and reviewed them.
No. Not even possible. So, well, what we do on this show and why you've tuned in, why have you tuned in? What we do on this show is we review, the sexiest motels in America. We try to give you hints, pointers. No, we talk about books. And what we like to do is when we're not doing special shows, which we've been doing for a few weeks, this is nice. We're kind of snapping back into our habits because bad habits die hard. We start with a nonfiction book of Steve's choosing because, as you've heard, he reads. Only. And then we do a fiction book. And at that point, we think go wild. And a wild card, I grab 5 random titles that Steve has no clue about. Well, he has plenty of clues about, but he doesn't know what I'm going to grab. And I'm going to throw them at him, and we'll see. It's the game show part of the show. And we'll see if he wins the year's supply of turtle wax. So, Steve, nonfiction time. What do you have for us this week?
Our viewers might think that my producer propensity for never telegraphing what he's going to grab would cause problems at the library, but I want to assure you it's always donuts. It's not patrons of any kind.
I'm becoming a better person, Steve. No, what is this? I don't know what this is. A weird shaped donut.
Good Lord.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
You who are listening and not viewing, he just held up a cantaloupe.
That's what that is. Okay, good. I was worried.
What's going on?
It's okay. I'm just clearing way for lunch, and we all know what lunch is going to be. So there we are. Well, before I kill myself with this cantaloupe, what is our nonfiction title for the week?
Our nonfiction pick for the week, I'm really going to hope that you're going to tell me that it is not on order at the library, is Truths by Vivek Ramaswamy, dude.
Gnarly.
It's a little book called Truths by someone who is accurately being called an entrepreneur, inaccurately being called a successful entrepreneur, and grossly deceitfully being called a presidential candidate. Vivek Ramaswamy was never a presidential candidate. No matter what his people said, no matter what he said, he is a flunky. He is the wall-eyed assistant Igor in every Frankenstein movie. He is a flunky.
He's kind of that little dog that jumps over the big dog in that Tom and Jerry. Hey, how you doing, Spike? Hi, Spike. I love you, Spike.
Well, except I can make sense out of dogs.
That's true.
The only thing that exists in Vivek Ramaswamy's life, you might think that it's money or interchangeable bimbos, but it's not. There's only one thing that exists in his life, and that thing is a bald queen's adjudicated rapist, Donald Trump. That's it. That's all. That's it. That's all. That is the only thing that exists in his life. It's the only thing he thinks about. It's the thing he wakes up to. It's the thing he goes to bed to. It's the thing on which he aligns his life.
I don't know his personal life. Is he married?
It doesn't matter.
Just curious if his wife knows
in his life, but Donald Trump. He is a flunky. And that's what this book is. Right down to its title. since on Donald Trump's ridiculous social media platform, his fascist social media platform, the posts are called Truths, and that's the name of the book. Truths, dude. It's all about all the things that are wrong with America and how we can put them right. And you might think, well, if the book is about all that's wrong with America, then surely that is where Vivek Ramaswamy will say what he actually does believe. You're saying he doesn't believe anything. But in order to write a book like this, he's going to have to say what he really believes. But that's not true. The things that are wrong with America in Truths are whatever Donald Trump has last said is wrong with America, provided he hasn't contradicted himself. Right. And the solution to how we fix those things is, anybody in the audience want to guess? Donald Trump. Solution, how we fix those things.
It's the ultimate board game here, you know, in the boardroom.
The last time we did an ordinary show, I had an episode. I pretty much aneurysmed out.
I put a stick in his mouth so he wouldn't swallow his tongue, everybody. So it was okay. We were good.
I was doing that about Melania Trump's thing with Paste and Pages.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to call it a book. I don't know what to call it. It is a black hole of causality. It is the singularity.
Right.
I don't know what that item is.
You held it, though, right? It is tangible?
It is. And I can't, even though I held it, I can't say what it is. The author didn't write it. The author can't read the language in which it's written. Right. The author's ghostwriters are not credited. The author's ghostwriters have been found dead in New Jersey landfills. The audience for this thing with Print and Pages doesn't read. The audience doesn't know this thing with Print and Pages exists, and nothing in this thing with Print and Pages is true or verifiable in any way. So I don't want to aneurysm again, but I literally don't know what that item is.
This is a cantaloupe.
and this book, Truths, is very similar to the same thing.
Really?
It's very similar. There's nothing in this thing that Vivek Ramaswamy wrote.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this thing that he knows about or will ever read. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing in this thing that he believes if Donald Trump contradicts it.
You know, if you wanted to begin a collection, a library of these things that are not books, because we've got two now, at least two, you could start to build a shelf of this mysterious thing, and we wouldn't know what to call it. And that's, you know, you have like your Hardy Boys on one shelf, and you know, your Grishams, and then this. What is it?
I don't want to aneurysm out again, but the only possible reason you could come up with, hypothetically, for why Truths exists is to butter up Donald Trump.
Who doesn't read?
Your old fat, bald, syphilitic, adjudicated rapist and fraud. An insurrectionist who tried to overthrow the government by violent means by unleashing a mob he knew was armed.
Yeah.
The only reason you could justify this book is to butter up Trump, and he can't read. It's not
right.
just that he won't read the book. He's not able to read the book.
I mean, start.
Singularity territory. What is this? That's the only possible reason it can exist. And that reason.
So Truths is like a Dick and Jane book for Donald Trump. He could, hoping that this is the one he starts with at age 78. His first book will be Vivek Ramaswamy's
The main thing that when I finished it, the main thing that I, believe it or not, you're never going to believe this coming from me, but the main reaction when I finished it was just a momentary pity for Vivek Ramaswamy.
Ooh.
Because Vivek Ramaswamy is young.
Yes.
And he's not alone in being part of this fat, bald, syphilitic, adjudicated rapist, multiple felons cult. He's not alone in being in that cult. There are plenty of people in that cult. There are 190 million Americans in that cult. But unlike most of those 190 million Americans, Vivek Ramaswamy is not in his 80s.
Right.
He's young.
Right.
So he is wagering everything on history turning.
Others have done that, though. There have been a lot of Shakespearean tragic figures. Our own Paul Ryan here in town. It's sad. It's just kind of
Right.
sad.
But I would argue that Paul Ryan didn't do this. He was wagering that things would stay the same, not that there would be a millenarian hard right in the road of history. He was wagering that things would be the same, even though it looked like they wouldn't be.
Right.
And as a result, he paid with everything.
Everything.
He lost everything that he built his whole life, 20 years of his life to produce.
Yeah.
But he can't regret that, right? When he's 80, which is what I'm trying to say. Vivek Ramaswamy fundamentally, none of these grifters, none of them fundamentally, just basically, they do not believe they will ever be 60, let alone 80. They just fundamentally don't believe it. Now, maybe that's, I don't know, the millennials' fault for creating
the gift of youth.
world. If you create such an effed up world, young people are going to think they're never going to be 80.
Right.
They are going to be.
It's funny because the gift of youth is the gift that does not keep on giving. That's actually the interesting thing about it.
No. And this thing, whatever it is never going to go away. And Vivek Ramaswamy does not believe he's ever going to be. I felt a little sorry for him because I wanted to say to him, when I wouldn't come within a country mile of him, but I wanted to say to him, I was once your age. I remember what it was like.
Yeah.
To think that your will is going to change the future, that it's all going to go your way. But no, there's a good chance that it won't. There's a good chance, in other words, that you will lose everything. And by that, I mean everything.
Yeah.
Not just necessarily his life. I mean, the former
it's on the table.
Trump was Mike Pence. He wrote one of these print and paper things that are nothing. And Trump wanted to have him killed on the lawn of the White House. So there's that. But there's something Paul Ryan has that Vivek Ramaswamy has forfeited, and he doesn't believe he has. That's the thing is, in the era of social media and 30-second attention spans and fake apology tours, he believes that everything he does will just get mulched over and it won't mean anything. And he's wrong about that.
Yeah.
He's wrong about that. Whereas when Paul Ryan is 80 and his grandchildren are all around him, he'll be able to tell them, I did not abandon my principles. Now, I think those were rotten principles to start with. But if he abandon them, he'll be able to say that.
Yeah.
When his grandchildren say, who was this guy, this guy that turned America to autocracy, this weird orange guy, he'll be able to say he was my enemy, not my Lord.
Certainly. Yeah.
I have to believe somewhere in some distant country that will mean something. And Vivek Ramaswamy and all these other people have forfeited that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe it. When I finished this book, I thought, you don't believe it. You don't believe this is personal. This is just shit posting.
That's what I was gonna ask about him, because even when and you read the book, so do you feel like he believes anything in truths?
No.
I didn't think so either.
No, absolutely not. No. He goes on for like 5 chapters in the book about, for instance, the woke mafia and the woke mind virus. And if he himself alone, without his crew of tech bro lamprey eels attached to his tiny little ass, if he went to a movie on his own, alone, a new movie in a theater in 2024 that he'd never heard of before, and at one point there's a whole cast, let's say it's a horror movie, there's a whole cast of characters, and all throughout the movie, not at the beginning, maybe not in the first 20 minutes, but after that, all the white characters in the movie start acting 1930s racist towards all of the non-white actors and 1930s sexist towards all the female characters.
Sure.
Every instinct in his body would bridle at that. He would hate it.
Yeah.
He personally would hate it. And he's read the book. So he doesn't believe any of this.
Right. He would hate it, but his business, his industry, the thing that keeps the lights on, can't hate it, is what I'm hearing.
No, he doesn't care about his business. Let's review.
Oh.
There's only one thing he cares about. There's only one thing, literally one thing he cares about. That's all. Just one thing.
I'm failing this test here, Steve.
Syphilitic, adjudicated rapist, fraud, and insurrectionist. That's the only thing he cares about. A guy that can't even remember his name.
Yeah.
And he knows, or at least imagines, that guy hates wokeism.
Well, and you know what's really interesting, and I wasn't sure if I was going to go here, but I will, is that there's one trait that Mr. Ramaswamy has that everyone under that orange person doesn't like. And you and I both know what that is that his pigment, his skin color is not what they prefer.
I know. It is the fundamental mystery to me. It's the fundamental mystery to me why at the front of the crowd of people asking for that right turn in the road of history, asking for a millenarial change, are Vivek Ramaswamy, Ben Shapiro, and Nick Fuentes. And you want to take them all together in an elevator and say, do you three have anything in common? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Do you have anything in common?
No one
MAGA says about you.
No one once said to these people, know thyself.
In Vivek Ramaswamy's case, he knows what MAGA says about him because they yelled at him at meetings and he had to smile right through it.
Yeah.
It is in a way pitiable.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, do you have any idea what it's like to have every detail of your life dictated by an overbearing blowhard?
Well, I was married, Steve.
Oh. Well, I got off easy on that one. Oh my. I thought I walked right into that one, but
and then of course I do produce radio shows from time to time.
Lots and lots of radio shows.
Oh boy. I've heard something about that. Yes. Anyway.
We have signs. Yeah.
It's just a political sign. Don't pay it no mind. So this is not a recommend.
Not a recommend. This is not a recommend. No. I don't even know what this is.
You'd be pleased to know that it actually is not on our roster.
I'd like to think not. I would like to think not.
Someone's going to request it, though. I know it. Someone's going to come in and say, where's that Ramaswamy book? And I'll have to go shopping. We put the public in public library.
It's a deep mystery to me. The old white guys, your racist uncle at Thanksgiving, that I understand.
Yeah.
But Shapiro, Fuentes, and Ramaswamy, that I don't understand.
Attorneys at law.
I just don't understand.
Well, they all want, and I'm assuming they all think that they're being guaranteed a cabinet post or some kind of position or whatever.
What this book is.
Yeah.
Whatever this thing is, that's what it is. It's a resume for a cabinet position.
Look at me. Ick. Anyway, moving on. Good Lord. Which I don't know. We'll see if this is an improvement. This gentleman, boy, he's popular. And this book, I was surprised because his last couple hadn't been. It's our fiction time, by the way, just in case you're wondering. We have shifted gears. His last couple weren't like off the charts, but this one's climbing steadily, and it is Nicholas Sparks. And what is the title of this one, Steve?
It's Counting Miracles.
Ah.
By Nicholas Sparks. I'm kind of curious to know why this one is taking off when the others didn't, because there is literally no difference between any Nicholas Sparks novel and any other Nicholas Sparks novel. Once you have read The Notebook, you have read them all.
Yeah.
This is a story of a main character named Tanner. Which, if you know one of two things. If your name is Tanner, either you are a character in a Nicholas Sparks novel or you are a son of Mitt Romney.
Oh, yes. Or you ran for office in 88 via Robert Altman, right?
Tanner is an Army Ranger. He's tough.
Oh, boy.
Sensitive. And he's an Army Ranger, goes from post to post. Need somebody saved, need a hostage rescued. We won't put in parentheses here, need a democratic elected government overthrown. We're not going to do that. No. Instead, it's, need a kitten taken out of a tree. Well, he'll do it. I was just getting used to the coffee in this place. Sorry, Tanner, you're out of here on the next plane. So he never sets down any route. And he doesn't have any deep family roots to his immediate parents because he was raised by his grandmother. She doted over him. She loved him. But she gets sick, and she has a protracted, extremely nice, filmable, lilac-centered death scene where she tells him he goes home to attend to her death. He wouldn't be allowed to do that if he were an Army Ranger and he were in such a band. He wouldn't be allowed to, but that's okay. I would say that in their memoirs, they talk all about how many family occasions they've missed, but mysteriously, they all end up dying before they write their memoirs.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Anyway, she tells him, find out where you came from.
Cue Landslide by Fleetwood Mac.
She doesn't say a name. She doesn't do anything helpful. People in their deathbeds never say anything helpful. When you're on your deathbed from one donut too many,
eat more mangoes.
It's the third button from the left. That's what you'll say. That's what producers always say when they die. Third button from the left.
Just add more compression.
It sets him on a quest to find his father, his biological father, who he never knew, find his family. And that quest takes him, as virtually every one of these Lifetime movie novels does, to North Carolina. Why? Have any of these novelists actually been to North Carolina? Why is everything centered on the Carolinas? Why? It's an iniquitous, mosquito-ridden hellhole. Why would anybody? Why does the action always go to the Carolinas instead of Minnesota?
I agree.
Or Iowa. Or something like that.
Or Wausau. They need help with their ballot boxes.
He goes to North Carolina. You're never going to guess what happens when he gets there. He has a meet cute with a feisty single mom who's a doctor. Her name is Caitlin. Their name
yes,
is
it would be
Caitlin. Yeah, it's always Caitlin. His name is Tanner, and her name is Caitlin. And their children are called Plot Resolution and Plot Armor. They have a meet cute and start orbiting each other. And, he's rugged but handsome, and he admires her independent can-do spirit, and also the fact that, she's a molten 11 or whatnot, and her kids are above average in every way. So things start to develop there between the two of them as he is sort of quietly nosing around about his mother's cryptic message, which she gave him instead of giving him a street address. And the whole while he's becoming aware of an almost urban legend. There's an old man, you see, who lives in a cabin with a dog out in the forest. His name is
Obi-Wan. Oh.
Might as well be. His name is Jasper. And he doesn't really have much truck with the townsfolk. He just sort of minding his own business. But there's a beautiful white deer that lives in the forest, and he is dead set on protecting that deer. It's come to mean a lot to him. Well, you don't laugh at me. I didn't make this stuff up.
I think you are making this up as you go along, Steve.
Given the elements that I have just told you, what would you imagine if we had to Mad Lib a Nicholas Sparks novel? Is there any chance that Jasper is Tanner's father? Is there any chance that he and Caitlin are going to get married and have children? Is there any chance that the deer is a sign from God? Do you think there's any chance of any of those things happening in a Nicholas Sparks novel of 180 pages soaking wet with rocks in its pocket? I don't want to spoil anything. For 1,000 years, for 1,000 years, that's a long time. For 1,000 years, if that white deer were a sign from God, the god would be Artemis. In Nicholas Sparks, especially in these later books, there is no doubt what pantheon is real here, or what pantheon is being evoked. And I can't help but wonder if maybe that's why the book is doing well.
I mean, He's not. He hasn't been known. He hasn't advertised himself particularly as a faith-based.
No, that's
author.
what I mean. But it's much stronger in this book. I'm wondering if that's the reason.
Well, it very well could be. And I wonder if there's some show out there or some 700 Club type thing that said, oh, this is the book. This is the woman. Finally, Nicholas Sparks. He was always fine, but he's really coming to his own now.
Yeah, a 700 Club, a holy version instead of unholy of this show is what I'm imagining is out there.
Steve, somewhere. I really enjoyed doing this show with you.
Well, I enjoyed doing this show with you too. Can I get an amen? Praise be. Now, those of you who are only listening and not watching this now.
Which is a mistake on your part. You really should tune in. Yeah.
Is it possible that there is such a show out there that's hosted by as opposed to what those hosts would say about this show,
right?
Which is that I'm going to hell for not believing in the God that you're going to hell for killing. Either way, both of us are screwed.
I mean, Steve and I do secretly pray that we will be banned because nothing will spike our ratings better. So someone out there, the sound of our voice, would you please ban us?
You can just hear out there in the wilderness of our listeners, the most rabid, theocratic listener in the world is being tempted for a fraction of a second with their finger over the keyboard and then saying, I don't think they're really worth it.
I would never be caught dead banning them.
This book, in other words,
yes,
Counting Miracles, is there's a technical literary term for this book. It's slop. Now, do you really want to walk all the way to the library and take out your library card and get slop? Do you really want to do that? Speaking to our
they kind of do.
I realize that slop can be comforting from time to time, but do you want slop? I guarantee you that if you come to the library, there's something better than this available to you. I guarantee it.
A romance that is better. Yes, exactly. I mean, it's funny because Sparks seems to dabble in theory in romantic drama, I guess you could call it. Maybe. But there is better. And we could direct you anywhere. Certainly.
There is, if the real reason, if we're right, that there's a 700 Club version of this show out there, I hesitate to think about it. But if we're right about that, well, there's better Christian fiction.
Sure. Yeah.
This is just slop.
Yeah.
Everything in it is completely predictable and it's all boringly written.
Yeah.
But even if that's the angle that you want, you could branch out. I guarantee you, if you walk into the library thinking of putting your name on does this have a waiting list, I assume?
Oh, yes. yes. We're cresting it around 200 holds system-wide.
Why don't you walk into the library and borrow an Edith Wharton collection of short stories? Why don't you do that? I guarantee there's no waiting list for it, and it will change your reading life. Why not? Why do this? Why idle with this slop? I have to read it, but that doesn't mean you have to read it. Why do it? Nicholas Sparks is not going to be hurt if you leave him. He's got money enough for 10 generations.
It's awesome, Steve. This is like the 700 Club for books because Steve dies for our sins.
And also save your soul.
That too. Yes.
If you're a patron of the Cedarburg Public Library, stands to reason the clock has already struck noon. You have very little time left to read. You're spending 10 hours a day drooling unconscious on a pillow. You're spending at least 2 hours a day cheating on your beloved spouse. There's all that donut time. You're doing a lot in your day. You have very little time left over for reading. Why waste it on something like this? Why do it? We'll have to do a whole episode on it.
It is interesting. It is interesting.
There is nothing. There is no button that is being pushed by Counting Miracles by Nicholas Sparks. I know you're not going to believe me, you listeners out there. Jeff will believe me, but you listeners might not believe me. But there is no button of yours as a reader that is being pushed by Counting Miracles that will not be pushed by Jane Eyre. And Jane Eyre doesn't have a waiting list, and it's 100,000 times better.
We have a lovely copy too. It's beefy. It feels good.
I guarantee that the buttons that are being pushed by this book will be pushed by that book.
Yeah.
Only you'll have read Jane Eyre.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wuthering Heights. We talked about that on that back in our book of the day show, and that's a fiery book, and it'll make you feel funny in certain places. I'm not going to say what those places are.
We're back to the 700 Club now.
I'm not going to talk about that at all. Anyway, well, there's 2 non-recommends for you this week.
Right. And I'm coming off terrible to our listeners. I know that I am. But the first thing, whatever it is, this Singularity by Vivek Ramaswamy dude, that is just a flat, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. With Nicholas Sparks, I know he has fans. I'm not drizzling contempt all over those fans. I'm saying, if you're a fan of Nicholas Sparks, if you've read all of his books, well, then you're a reader. You're a practiced reader.
Yeah.
Why not use the library as a proving ground for all the adventures in the world? That's what the library is for.
Yep. Use Nicholas as a gateway drug. Yeah.
That's what's absolutely. You do anything rather than chat with him at the info desk. Or the books instead is what I'm saying. There's no reason. We've all been good to Nicholas Sparks. He has enough money to die for. You don't need to stick around and eat a bowl of reheated slop.
If I don't read Choosing Miracles, what'll become of him? Well, let me save Steve. He saved us. Now let's see if I can dig him out of the really ditch that he's flailing in. I promise you, the book I'm about to hold up for our wild card segment is one that he will rave about just on subject matter alone. He's got puppy brain.
Yes. Well, I love a good dog book. This is Terry Nichols. Is that the author?
That's Carrie Nichols. Yeah.
Terry Nichols, Puppy Brain. And I love the subject because it's a dog book. However, I can't dig myself out with our viewers. The book is fundamentally wrong in every claim that it makes. Fundamentally wrong in every claim that it makes, except when how
could it be wrong, Steve?
It talks about what puppies are really like. It talks about what is going on in puppyhood. They are explosively learning the world because just in terms of their natural biology, they can't afford to be learning the world for very long, or they are an easy meal. That is just hardwired into their biology. They're not like humans. Humans do not explosively learn the world. The price we pay for being born with a brain that's as powerful as a Cray supercomputer is that we have to be helpless for years in order to mature it. That's not true with most other animals. It's certainly not true with canines. So puppies have to explosively learn the world. By the time their real teeth come in, they should be able to hunt with those teeth. Even though no puppy is ever going to need to do that. That's still the way they are wired. The book is right about that. And it's wrong about everything else. I have had many, 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 many dogs. I, let's just say, have a knack with dogs. And I've also trained dogs.
Folks, he is a dog.
But this is a subject, in other words, I know that I sound authoritative on every subject. But this is a subject I know really, really well. This is one of the only subjects in the world I know better than books. Allow me to impart a little advice.
Please.
Don't train a puppy.
Don't
at all train a puppy. Don't train a puppy.
What about my carpet, Steve?
No, they're not going to remember. All you're going to do is traumatize the puppy.
Yeah.
In very little time, in your mind, you're going to live 80 years. You're going to go through 10 of these animals. In very little time, the puppy will no longer be a puppy, and then you can train it. You cannot train a puppy. All you can do is terrify a puppy. What you want to do while the dog is a puppy, a little milk tooth flopping all around, making mistakes everywhere puppy. What you want to do while it's a puppy is bombard it with unconditional love.
Which isn't hard. That's easy.
I know a lot of people out there who believe in training puppies. That's not unconditional love. Once you're training someone, that's not unconditional. I know. I've trained a lot of producers.
He finally removed the newspaper from the studio last week. It's awesome.
Bombard your puppy with unconditional love. Tell yourself over and over again what I already know, which is that a puppy cannot actually do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Apart from hurting themselves. Don't leave electrical wires or anything. They can't do anything wrong behaviorally. Nothing. Just laugh, just have fun, just love the puppy. You might worry that you're going to be reinforcing bad behavior. If you do that, you're not.
Yeah.
It's not going to remember. Do you remember when you were a month old? You're not going to remember. When the puppy's not going to remember. So you're not reinforcing bad behavior.
Yeah.
And when it comes time in 8 months, 6 months, depending on the breed, 10 years if it's a basset hound, when it comes time that you can train the dog, look at what you will have on your side. A massive ocean of unconditional love.
I was going to say, elite. Yeah, absolutely.
That dog is going to want to do anything to please you.
Yeah.
At that point.
This is pretty revolutionary. I mean, actually, as a dog owner for many years, I've never heard that. Although I will say that you're right, because I remember trying to, do what everyone said, train your puppy, and I remember failing miserably quickly, and then realizing, all right, well, I didn't like that carpet that much anyway, so it's fine. And
your puppy, a domesticated dog, Canis familiaris, they have one superpower. It's not scent. It's not hearing. It's reading humans. They read humans better than chimpanzees do, and we are chimpanzees. So their superpower right from the beginning, as soon as their eyes open, is to be able to read humans extremely well.
Yeah.
If you're trying to train a puppy, well, the training's not going to work. But what's the puppy going to be reading in the meantime? Tons of frustration.
Right. Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that to someone who's going to be gone before you buy a new car. You're going to regret it. You will regret it. Don't do it. Don't train a puppy. You can't do it anyway. So don't do it.
Yeah, head on over to our Patreon, because there's no way someone in the sound of our voice didn't just get a really good hint out of that, because someone watching a show just got a puppy recently, just by the law of averages, and they're frustrated.
Puppies are frustrating.
They are.
Make sure that the puppy can't hurt itself.
Yeah.
So it can't get outside. It can't chew on electrical wires. Can't get at chocolate. Make sure the puppy can't hurt itself. And otherwise,
love the stuffing out of them.
Yeah. And remember, my producer said, well, I'd never really liked that carpet anyway. Keep in mind, that's actually true.
Yeah.
When you're 60, you're not going to care about any of this stuff. None of it at all. But I guarantee you, when you're 60, you're going to remember a dog you mistreated. It's going to torment you. And there won't be anything you can do about it. You can't go back and change it.
Right.
So don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
The key to a peaceful old age is to decrease your regrets, which opens the question of why I'm doing this show.
Wow. He does not practice what he preaches, everybody. Just so you know. Oh, that was good, man. I'm glad I brought that book, because that was really good stuff. My gosh, I couldn't
recommend. Do you have anything to recommend?
I couldn't pay for that kind of advice, and I won't. But I do have. Maybe this author is speaking of getting up there in years. We got Clete from James Lee Burke. It's a Robot Show novel. Is he still drinking? I don't know. What's going on in here?
I can definitely recommend not only this book, but this author.
He's great. Yeah.
I would assume that he is a favorite at the library.
For a while, sadly, I think he's fallen out of favor a little bit, just because I don't think he's as maybe prolific, or
not enough glowing white deers in the forest. And in case you're wondering, this is a rare example where I'm not glowering at my producer. I'm glowering at all the rest of you.
Now you know what it feels like, everybody.
Their flower power is no match for my glower power.
Glower power. I love it. We got to package that. We have to have some sort of, has to be a Books of the Week product.
This is an unusual Dave Robichaux novels. You can tell from the title, this is not about Dave Robichaux, not mainly. It's about another character, but it's terrific. Just terrific. Just this is exactly what I'm talking about. This, if you have a reading budget for reading time and reading energy before the dementia and the glaucoma sets in, use it for James Lee Burke and not for Nicholas Sparks.
No.
Read this book instead. You will love it.
Can you come in unanointed to the Robichaux thing? I mean, is it okay?
Pretty much. He's pretty good about that.
Okay, cool. I've been. It sounds the flap sounded interesting, and I said I should add this to my roster. So I think I will, but I'm way behind on. I think I fell off around in the electric mist of Confederate Dead or something, which I loved.
The one that really broke out was Electric Mist with the Confederate Dead.
Absolutely.
And you will, if you are new to Robichaux, you'll be looking at all of the books on the first page, and don't let that bother you. Just try it. I think you won't mind at all.
Absolutely. It helps to have a little Cajun food with you while you're reading. I think get in the mood. Another animal here, another critter, and I know you're a fan of this type of critter. We got Sharks Don't Sink: Adventures of a Rogue Shark Scientist, Jasmine Graham. What's up with this?
Well, the first thing is that publishers have marketing departments, and they must be appeased. There's nothing rogue about the shark scientist.
How do you go rogue besides being eaten?
Nothing rogue about it. But it is shark science, and there's a long. It's really good. There's a little too much about the author in there, and a little too many hints on the author's part. That despite what we know from astronomy, the sun really does rise and set out of her ass.
Oh,
which, I know astronomically speaking, that's not true, but there's only a little of that. There's only a little too much of that. It's actually fascinating for how we study these animals that we are eliminating from the earth. Or we are decimating sharks every year, and that's not going to stop until they're all gone. So, how do shark scientists do what they do? There's a long tradition of books like this.
Yeah.
I think probably because the subject matter animal is so interesting. I certainly think so. Reading this book is as close as I ever want to get to one of them. I watched a video on Instagram just yesterday.
Okay.
A fashion influencer decided she would film her vacation. And she's on a lovely yacht that one of her viewers has invited her onto. And at one point they decide, oh, look at the turquoise sparkling water. Let's swim for a while in the water. And they all jump in. One person stays on the deck so that they don't end up being a horror movie where no one can get back on board the vessel. And I'm thinking, that is insane behavior. The shadow cast by that yacht attracts fish.
Yeah.
In huge swarms.
Oh, absolutely.
The fish attract sharks.
The circle of life.
What you're doing essentially is dumping fresh meat off the side of the boat. But this book, very entertaining. So we got
absolutely
2 recommends in a row. Good.
I watched a recent shark video too that kind of spiked my anxiety. It was a family guy, and he's like, "Oh, me and my kids were here in Australia. We're gonna swim with sharks." And I thought, I don't know if you should do that.
Yeah,
exactly. But it threw the kids right in. Just there goes Billy and Judy, and they're all
There's a thing that happens to people when they are too online. They become so addicted to clicks that they no longer know where they are or what they're doing.
Right, that's true.
I've got my newborn baby in a stroller. Let's see how many lines of the Long Island Expressway I can bolt across, because this is going to go mega viral.
Right.
You're going to die. Your little baby's going to die.
Oh, yeah.
No, you don't understand. This is going to go mega viral.
Right. Death is not something I'm particularly concerned about at this time. But those clicks, oh my gosh, But maybe we should bring that mood to this show, because I think we'll get more. We need to have more death defying here, which I feel every time we go live. So,
how do we get a slice of the clicks pie? How do we do?
Something, I don't know. We should. Well, I'll tell you. This might be interesting. I'm actually in the middle of this book right now, and I'm struggling with it. And we're going to talk Entitlement by Rumaan Alam. Yeah. What? Does it help?
I know.
Anybody?
I bet I know exactly what you're thinking. Did you read the last one? You probably read.
I saw the movie. I watched and that's actually what drew me to this, because I actually enjoyed the movie because I regarded the movie as a satire. I don't know if it was intended as such, but I thought it was hilarious. Which says a lot about me. I was hoping for more of that in here. Instead, it's a term that you introduced me to a few episodes ago, Japanese zombie fiction or something like that.
I think there's a reason for it. I have a fan fiction reason for what Rumaan does in his fiction. I think I know the reason why this book is the way it is, why you're feeling the way you are about it, because it sets itself up to deliver some haymakers to a whole bunch of social subjects and then doesn't do it. And I think that's because I think that Rumaan understands that those subjects warrant haymakers, and has the horrible realization that he knows what will happen to him if he delivers those haymakers. The people on the alt left, the people with Ukraine flags in their Twitter bios, the people who say that all art is oppression. Well, that all feels warm and cuddly, and isn't it great to march with these people, until you start to think about what happens if you disagree with them. Because you already know what they do when they disagree with people. You were part of doing that.
Right.
You already know about the brigading online. You already know about the unpersoning. You already know about the nonstop 24-hour-a-day phone calls to past and present employers, past and present school administrators of the children. You already know what they will do if they turn on you, and you don't want that to happen. But you recognize that this subject is ripe for a takedown.
Well, and that's interesting, because I thought someone asked me, a coworker asked me, "Oh, how's the book coming so far?" I said, I think he's eviscerating the left in a real backhanded kind of way.
Yeah. Which you can't do. You can't write the kind of book that this wants to be.
Yeah.
Be backhanded or courteous about it. There's no way to do that. Satire has to be savage. And
yes.
And this is not. There's no such thing as polite.
No. And it's interesting because that's why I haven't, done that yet, and did the classic DNF, hand gesture. But it is fascinating to watch this guy walk this tightrope.
Yeah, but he can't walk the tightrope.
Oh, I was hoping at the end he delivered us something, or I hope there was,
The main point that I want to make is that you should DNF it. There are our viewers who aren't terminally online. That means did not finish. You should DNF it, because regardless of what we say about satire or politeness, it's a failure of a book. The book fails, regardless of why it fails.
Yeah.
You are reading it now page by page without feeling any satisfaction at all. Mm-hmm. And I think you're pretty sure that you're never going to get that.
No.
I've got to the end of this thing. I felt the same way all through it. So I had to finish this, but you don't have to finish this. No,
I'm the nice Wisconsin guy who eats mangoes all day long.
Entitlement could be brilliant. Someone will do it. 2 other contemporary so-called literary fiction writers have tried in the last 3 years. The other 2 failed, not because they were afraid to deliver the haymaker, but because they are online 24 hours a day, literally 24 hours a day. So you can't satirize something if you're doing it. You have to break with it first. You have to hate it.
Absolutely. Interesting, a fascinating lack of character development too in that book, in that they're all ciphers.
Yeah,
which was weird. Which
could be very productive in an actual satire.
Yes,
but no, not in this book. No. No, we live in the age, if you're on social media, we live in the age of the non-apology apology, and this is a non-satire satire, and that means it's a failure of a book.
Mathematically, that's a double negative. It doesn't work. It's like 2 negatives don't make a positive.
Once you pile on the double negatives like that, you're in Ramaswamy territory.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but you said it. That's good. Excellent. Let's end on a high, if we can. I got a book that just the title alone, I have not read it, but I want to. It's called That Night in the Library by Eva Jurczyk, I want to say. Do you know
I haven't read it.
Okay.
I haven't read it. It's part of a huge fad. There's a huge I bet you didn't know that you were hot. There's a huge fad of library fiction. I think because on the one hand, you would think, well, isn't that encouraging? because we want people to go to libraries, and we want people to know how wonderful they are, how they're the nadir, they're the centerpiece of all that is wonderful in the imaginative world.
And then there's me. You got me.
But that's not the case. I hate to burst your bubble. I hate to burst your jelly donut. But that's not the case. That's not what's happening here. These books are not a reflection of the infinite wonder of libraries. They are a reflection of the fact that the wagons have been circled around the tight, bitter kernel of the few remaining readers in the world.
Yeah.
That's why there are so many books now about libraries.
Yeah.
Who reads?
I know.
They go to libraries. Well, write me a book in a library.
You did a video about, if you don't know, by the way, if you're on YouTube, you can go to Steve Donahue and you will find a whole lot more of him. A whole lot. So much more.
My channel is my name, and there are about 200 videos. It's a lot to go through
per day. But you did a really interesting
YouTuber just last week. I said, yeah, my channel has about 200 videos on it, and he was like, you're kidding me. I didn't have the heart to tell him that we're closing on 9,000 videos. I think he would literally have died if I'd said that.
So I don't think so.
I didn't have the heart to say it.
It was funny because recently your output dipped a little because you had some life stuff going on. People must have lost their minds.
I got endless emails from people saying, is everything all right? And why were they asking that? Because this weird old guy on YouTube was posting 1 video a day instead of 5 videos a day. I had to rein people in. I had to tell them, it's just possible that I have expanded your expectations. No one else does 5 videos a day.
Steve's a little addictive for some people. But I count myself as one of them.
That's what this book reflects. And Matt Haig has done a couple of books like this. All kinds of Japanese fiction are about libraries now, about the wonders of this. They're all about the wonders of this quirky little library where something magical happens.
Right.
And I want to underscore here, my producer hates it when I get all schmaltzy like this, but nevertheless, that is true about libraries. Something magical does happen in them. It doesn't happen in them if you mindlessly put yourself on a 200-person waiting list for a bucket of slop, but it can happen. Libraries can, they are incredible places of adventure.
I see it every day.
The only thing you would think, if I'm thinking that and these books reflect that, I should be happy with these books. But these books reflect that from the outside looking in. Hey, where do these what do you call them, readers go? They're barely, I always say this to people and they always want to reject the idea. There are barely any readers in the world. And people always say, although that's not true. That's not true. One person, I said that person said, that's not true. The world's full of readers. And I said, do you personally know any? And she said, no. I said, have you known any in your adult life after school? And she said, no. I said, are you raising any? And she said, no. And another person desperately flailing to try to make that not true. When I said no readers in the world, said, well, what about you? Your life is surrounded by readers. I'm a professional book critic and a book section editor. I'm exception. Most people aren't like that. Most people in libraries are where the readers go.
Right.
I think that's why all these whimsical.
Right. We're a building of weirdos. That's what's great, is that if you're a reader, you can immediately be pigeonholed as a weirdo. and you are. You know, if I sit in local coffee shops with a nose buried in a book, and I know people maybe, well, okay, this is just me, I guess, but people recoil in horror. You know, and they're like, what are you doing? And it's like, why don't you read on your phone? They'll tell me that all the time. Why don't you get those, you know? And it's like, well, I would, and I do, but today I have this. So
I think you're blocking out something important. What those people usually say is, why don't you read on your phone over there?
We have many coffee shops in this area. Why this one? Why did you come to this one?
That's the part they're stressing. The over there part, not the reading on the phone part. The problem I have with these books is that they fetishize that instead of celebrating it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true for this book. This book might be the exception, but
it's a mystery. So I mean, there may be a death. I don't know, but I'm gonna give it a look because I do.
Well, you'll know in the first chapter or two whether or not it's taking reading seriously.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what Steve was talking about, supporting readers and supporting libraries and all that, you can support this show, which also supports this library. It's a wonderful little circular psychophantic thing we've got going on here. Patreon.com/books of the week. As they say on public radio, if we just send in your pledge, we might be able to stay on the air for another 4 hours.
I know, and at this point, that's practically a threat. What these shows are like. That's practically a threat.
Keep this producer in mangoes. So, no, all of the money, of course, goes to the Friends of the Cedarburg Public Library. We love them. We adore them. Without them, yes, Steve?
Little known truth here. One of the Friends of the Cedarburg Public Library is also obsessed with a white deer in the woods behind the library.
That's just me.
I'm not sure exactly why they're obsessed, but they are.
Oh, no, I've been outed. Occasionally, I put my white deer uniform on and prance around by the dumpsters. Steve's right. I cannot tell a lie. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next week, hopefully with more new releases, new arrivals. And Steve will keep reading.
I will try to have recommends next week. I realize that some of our viewers are turning in for the morbid fascination of seeing if I'll actually stroke out on camera, but I do want to recommend books to you, so I will try to do that.
Next week is the one. Maybe you'll have a book that somehow gets into this. I have no idea what's going on here, everybody. Tune in next week and find out. How you like that? It's a cliffhanger. Goodbye, all. Have a wonderful reading week.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you again.